A layer mask is a very important tool in Photoshop which you can use to hide a certain portion of your image, object, or text layer in Photoshop. So I'm going to be showing you exactly how a layer mask functions. Now, to create a layer mask, it's very easy. You just select the layer to which you want to apply the mask, and then you go down to this button down here on Add Layer Mask button. Once you click on that button, a layer mask is being created, and this layer mask has been attached to this text layer which we were seeing here. So now, if I come into this layer mask and I paint any portion of that layer mask with the color black, it's going to erase that area. It's going to make that area non-visible. But if I paint with white, it's going to cause that area to be visible. For instance, now if I use white and I paint, nothing is actually happening because everything here, everything in this layer was visible from the beginning. So painting with white doesn't make any difference, because if you look at the layer mask, everything there is white. Now, the moment I switch my color to black and I paint on this layer, you see nothing is actually happening. But when I come closer to this mask text, you see the text is gradually being erased. But if I switch my color back to white and I paint, you see the text is being reviewed again. So that is how a mask works. So if there's an area in your image that you don't want to see in the design, what you do is you just use a black color and you paint over that area. So the beauty of the layer mask tool is that it doesn't destroy your layer. For instance, if I paint like this, what it has done is that it has just covered part of that layer, but it doesn't affect the original text. It doesn't affect it in any way. So I can still come back later and modify this. If I did not want this mask, I can even delete the mask by unchaining it here, unlinking it here, and then I click on the mask, drag, and I drop here. See how simple it is. Yeah, so that is how you use a mask in Photoshop to hide part of a text in Photoshop. So you can also use a mask on images. For instance, let me import an image which we can use for this example. Okay, let's work with this image. Let's say we have this image and we want to bring it into our design. I drag it and I drop here, and I minimize this, reduce the size of this image. Yeah, assume that I want to remove the background from this image. What I'm going to do, since this background is uniform and it's in a white color, what I'm going to do is I will just go up here, click on select, click on subject, and allow Photoshop to do its calculations. And when the calculations have been done, boom, what I do now, I can decide to create a copy of this selection or to create a mask over this selection. Now when you create a copy, this is what happens. We create a copy. Let's assume that you created a copy and you deleted this one. Now you realize that the background has been taken off completely from the design. Now let's assume that parts of this man's jacket were selected as the background when you were doing your selection. What will you do at that moment? You will not be able to correct that because you have already destroyed the background completely. But now, if we did it this other way, like we select, and then when the selection is done, instead of creating a duplicate of the selected area, we instead create a layer mask by clicking on this button, you see the background is still there. If I come on this mask and I use my brush tool and I paint white here, paint on this spot, you see that those areas, those part of the background, they are being reviewed again. So, and I don't want that. So what am I going to do at this moment? I'm just going to undo, and our text, okay, our image is back to where it was. So this is a very cool way to work with this. Okay, now let me show you another way you can use a mask. Let me just do a quick effect here. Now I may want to hide this part of his hair. It's looking whitish, so this blue background doesn't really work well for this design. So what I'm going to do is I will probably select this color on his shirt. I create a new layer below. I fill it like that. Then I use my brush tool, create another layer. Then I take a lighter color, a lighter version of that. Then I increase the size of my brush to something like this and reduce softness, make sure the hardness is at 0, and I just click there like that. I click here, you see that I'm kind of hiding the whiteness on the edges of his hair. So that is not still working the way I want it to work. I will still go further, maybe use a more brighter version of that, and then I come around where his head is and I dab like that. See, that is a nice way. That is a nice way of hiding that part of his hair. So the effect I want to do here is to make part of the mask, this mask text to appear in front while some other parts appear behind. So I want to warp it around him. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this layer, Ctrl J to duplicate. When I duplicate this layer, I will also open this effects button, the layer style, by duplicating on the layer. Then I reduce my fill opacity to 0, and then I create a stroke around the shape, and I want the stroke to be around 5 pixels, and I take OK. Now when I bring this above the other layer, you now see that this mask text has come and it's now right above. He's now in between the mask text behind, like it's in between the two mask text. So let's assume that I want this this K to come like it was on this his hand, like the back part of this K to appear like it was actually on this his hand. What am I going to do? I'll create another copy of this mask, the one behind. Let me hide so you see. I'll create a copy of the one behind, right, which is this, and I'll bring up. Now when I bring it above, you now see that it's actually covering everything, and the outline effect that I just created before is no more showing. So what I want to do now is I will create a mask on this, and now I can select a portion of this text, maybe this portion like this. Yeah, I can select this portion like this. Now once that selection is made, I want to hide this part so that this white part of this mask text doesn't show, just the outline should be visible on this spot. So when I do that, I then select my brush tool, and I come here on my layer mask, the black brush, I then paint. Are you seeing? When I paint now, it disappears completely, and you see that he's now fitted in between the text. But now this layer, if I deactivate this layer, you see that this layer just came in to prove that he was in between the text. So that is a cool way of using a mask in Photoshop. And also I could also want to fade this part of his body so that it appears like he's part of the background. What do I do in this case? What will I use here? I'm going to use a black brush to paint on this spot. So just click like that, and you see him being fused into the background. So that is a nice way of using a layer mask in Photoshop. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like this video, share it, click on the notification button, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe so that you can be updated when I release my next video. Thank you very much.